Now let's go to objection number 1. Excessive extra-scriptural conjecture or mental gymnastics. Many theologians say that it takes too much imagination to construct a gap between Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 and verse 3. They say that such a gap scenario leaves too much history to conjecture without biblical support. Granted, if only Scripture were involved, then they would have reason to suspect the gap theory as a result of unreliable conjecture. However, this gap is scientifically discerned and scripturally affirmed. Consider this. If indeed there was a ruination of the original creation, the most studied opponents of the gap theory understand that there would have had to have been a more perfect creation that once existed before the present world or cosmos was created. Adam is thought by theologians in general to be the ultimate expression of God. Adam, a creature made in the image of God. If that was not exactly the case, then this present creation would be an anticlimactic version of the original creation of Genesis 1:1. Now, according to normative Christian theology, God's present creation on earth must be the best that God could have done, and Adam is the ultimate creation. A gap theory scenario questions that doctrinal assumption. Consider Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That would be the more perfect creation. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 says, "And the earth was void, and darkness was on the face of the deep," etc. This would indicate the pre-Adamic sinful world. This is the gap. Then there is one place where God says, "Let there be light," and that would be the beginning of creation for those who follow the young earth theology. A little problem with that. If Adam, created on the sixth day, was God's ultimate creation, how is it that he became an enemy to God? Now, this question I will answer throughout this book. But that is a little problem. So God's best became his worst. Young earth, non-gap theorists, if you will, don't like the idea that there was a more perfect creation before God said, "Let there be light." In that case, sin enters creation at the beginning of a pre-Adamic sinful world, not following the 6 days of creation, starting with Adam. When you go to my website, go to the Images tab, and you will see this chart titled The Anticlimactic Creation. Theologians must begin to understand that Adam was a corruptible creation, not ideal. Rather, with the potential to have God's perfection through faith in the Redeemer, in the Christ. The race of Adam is made in the image of God, but the spiritual substance of the Adamic race must be born again from above individually, as Jesus said in John chapter 3, "Ye must be born again." There is a theological difference between the man Adam and the man Christ. Paul the Apostle made room for this idea in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 44 through 47. Quoting, "It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body, and there is a spiritual body. And so it is written, the first man Adam was made a living soul, the last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit, that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural." And when he says howbeit, he's saying, that being true, notice this, that the first was not spiritual, but was natural, and afterward that which is spiritual would come. The first man is of the earth, earthy, the second man is the Lord from heaven. This is textual proof that the last Adam was the only incorruptible descendant of the first Adam, and that all Adams, you and me, descendants of the first Adam, that believe in him, transcend the principle of indwelling sin or indwelling corruption. This also is the biblical basis of predestination. Normative Christian theology has enshrined a doctrine that obscures the truth that is in the Scriptures. God is in a box, and theologians scramble to preserve the box. It appears to be an attempt to rescue God from the shame of a creation gone bad. This requires the denial of verifiable data, truth. This is not needed if we embrace all truth. When we see this present creation as a transition to a healed creation, our Christian doctrines will make sense. There is biblical data that tells us of a vast history extending out beyond the creation of Adam over 250 million years of astrophysical activity that seems to give a time placement for Revelation 12, verses 7 through 9. Quoting, "And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought, and his angels," that means that he fought back, "and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." With that in mind, consider the research done by the great astrophysicist Dr. Thomas C. Van Flandern, who was an avowed atheist. My point being that he promoted no religious agenda. Van Flandern's research led him to the conclusion, as stated in his article, The Exploded Planet Hypothesis 2000, that starting 250 million years ago, there were 3 planetary explosions that changed the composition of the solar system and whose debris devastated and or modified the biosphere of Earth in each case. The first planet to explode we will call Planet 6, 250 million years ago, which existed in the present asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and it had a moon. The second explosion was the mother planet of Mars, Planet 5, 65 million years ago. The third and final planet to explode was the moon of Planet 6, 3.2 million years ago. Later, that was modified to be a second moon of Planet 5, as you can see in Flandern's video presentation, The Violent History of Mars, and you can see that on YouTube. Though the Geological Column has been abused by Darwinists to force the theory of evolution, it does teach the age of the Earth and keeps a record of worldwide extinctions that have occurred. The Geological Column shows that at the Permiantriassic boundary layer there was a worldwide extinction of plants and animals 250 million years ago. This Permiantriassic PT extinction is coincident with a worldwide layer of cosmic debris. Evidence of a comparable mass extinction is found at the CT or Cretateous-Tertiary boundary layer 65 million years ago. The extinction of many dinosaurs is said to have occurred at the CT boundary layer. The final planetary explosion is coincident with an environmental change in the biosphere on Earth that coincides with a radical shift in the diet of the hominid named Lucy 3.2 million years ago. In the LiveScience.com article by Tia Gose titled "Survey Suggests Human Ancestors Transformed Diet Around Lucy's Time," researchers found that by examining the ratios of carbon isotopes in dental specimens over a range of individuals that a record of diet change has been established. However, there has not been a specific cause listed with the findings in that particular article. This corresponds to the paleontology that indicates that there was a change in the ocean currents, which signals a worldwide climatic change. It was also this particular geological period that supported a number of different hominid races or, quote, ancestors in the Darwinist tradition. Now back to the first objection to the gap theory. If we pretend that the paleontology does not exist, and we rely on scriptural data exclusively, then we can agree with the objection. However, if we accept the science and then look into the Bible, no excessive conjecture is required. The astrophysical data gives the theologian a biblical time frame to place the war in heaven. The first explosion would have been the near beginning of the war with Lucifer, and the last would have been the end of the war. We see that the whole solar system became tohu, and that there could have been a 3.2 million year period following the last explosion, that the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the deep, as we see in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. Let's conclude objection number 1. This takes very little imagination and allows for reasoned conjecture. The new gap theory seeks to integrate all valid data, both scientific and scriptural. We believe that in light of the evidence available, the new gap theory nullifies the first objection to the gap theory in general. The new gap theory simply provides evidence that must be included in the argument for the validity of the gap theory as a general doctrine. Scientific data provides us with a bedrock of knowledge that allows us to affirm the gap between Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 and Genesis chapter 1 verse 3. The new gap theory rejects the objection of excessive conjecture or mental gymnastics.